Tampa's going to change. What Tampa has in a potential loss to Seattle is going to change. We're going to see somebody get moved. So, in looking at who you're protecting for Tampa and who you're not, it's really not that hard to figure this out. And yet, there's going to be a decent player that ends up going to Seattle. Now, I know people are going to say Tyler Johnson off the crack here, right? Because Kraken, right? But the reality is, Tyler Johnson, they're not going to want that contract for nothing. Yes, Tyler Johnson being a member of the Seattle team makes the most sense in the world. But if he's still with Tampa at that point, Tampa's likely still going to have cap issues because it's Tampa and they have a lot of really good players. Now, Kucherov, Stamkos both have no movement clauses. They wouldn't get asked to waive them anyways. Braden Point, Andre Palat, I think we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year that they're really important players. I think you protect Coleman. I know he's a UFA next year, but I think they extend his contract. Look what Coleman did for them in the playoffs. Once they've got out from underneath one or two of these contracts, look for Coleman to sign some sort of an extension. Anthony Cirelli and Matthew Joseph, of course, are both currently RFAs as I'm recording this, but I think both of them stay in Tampa. And you know what? I don't know that Joseph gets protected. I think Joseph could have a bounce back season and get protected. Now, in the event that Joseph doesn't have one of those years that means he gets protected, I could see Yanni Gourde being protected, and I could see Cedric Paquette being the one that gets protected. Gaudreau, maybe, again, if they extend his contract, maybe Gaudreau gets an extension and he gets protected. But that's the thing with Tampa. There are a lot of options. So Gourde, Paquette, Gaudreau, sure. But I think it's pretty much set in stone, I would think, that you really want to keep these six. Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Palat, Coleman, and Cirelli. You can keep those six. I don't know that it necessarily matters who the number 7 forward is. And keep in mind, too, that Maroon is out there. Maroon might be an interesting pick for Seattle. And they could probably get talked into picking Maroon and getting Johnson out of that as well. Kachuk, though, young player. Radish, young player. Both of them at times have been seen as having a lot of NHL upside. Could be fascinating to see what Tampa does in order to maybe protect one or maybe trade one rather than lose one for nothing. But if they lost Kachuk or Radish and they didn't have to worry about losing anybody else out of their lineup, I think they'd be happy. And Volkov qualifies for the expansion draft next year. There are some very, very interesting options up front if you're Seattle. And it doesn't really matter what order you put your protected players in for Tampa. Odds are there's going to be a pretty decent forward available for Seattle. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be a forward. Out of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Cedric Paquette. He hits like a ton of bricks. He's not that old. And you need first, second, third, fourth line players. Vegas showed that. Vegas didn't just pick necessarily the best player available. They went with a good fit. So they went through, and when I do the draft and I try to draft up a Seattle team, I'm going to try to have that in mind of, okay, first line, second line, third line, fourth line, and then your defense, and then your goaltenders, and come up with it that way. So Paquette could be an excellent third/fourth line option down the middle for Seattle. Now the blue line, I think again it's relatively easy. You've got Hedman with a no movement clause. They wouldn't have him exposed anyways. Sergachev, well, they're not going to expose Sergachev, and I think Chernak. And again, one thing that this list shows is that the guys who are restricted free agents currently, Tampa probably wants to hold on to them, and Chernak's one of them. Now, there's a chance that Chernak is exposed in the expansion draft and they protect Cal Foote. Cal Foote, according to Cap Friendly, qualifies for the expansion draft and might be a really interesting addition for the Kraken. And McDonough, I think, gets exposed because he's under a contract till 2026 and his cap hit is $6.75 million. Tampa Bay, basically, on this side of the board, it's about trying to dump money. It's about trying to convince Seattle to take a contract off their hands. And again, I don't think Johnson's going to be a member of the Lightning when we get to this. I think Killorn may very well end up being traded as well. At the time I'm recording this, there's basically been a deadening of the trade waters. There's no trades happening. And there aren't going to be until we know what's going to happen with this season. So I would not be surprised to see one of the big money contracts end up going to Seattle in exchange for Tampa also throwing in a pick. That I could see happening. And then in net, of course, you protect Vasilevsky and you let McElhinney go, potentially. If Seattle drafted McElhinney again, I think Tampa'd be mildly happy and probably mildly frustrated if they still had a cap problem next year after the expansion draft. But I think Seattle and Tampa will have discussions between now and then, and we'll see how they go. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Again, this is a guide. When I go through and I actually do like the expansion draft, which isn't that long now, because we got Toronto, Vancouver, Vegas, Washington. No, not Vegas. Toronto, Vancouver, Washington, and Winnipeg. So I got 4 teams left to do the protected list for because Vegas is exempt. I can do a video, though, on who Vegas could lose if they were participating. That might be fun. Looking at, well, what would Vegas have to do if they did have to participate? And I think for people who aren't happy with, Vegas being exempt, I think they probably wouldn't be happy at who Vegas would lose because it wouldn't be anything major. But when we get through to that stage, I'm going to do my best to draft a team that meets all the requirements. I'm not going to worry about 20 of them having a contract through 2021, 2022 because I think a lot of these players are going to get signed to extensions before Seattle takes them. So you meet with the player a week before the expansion draft and you say, all right, what's your asking price? And then you sign them and then you draft them in the expansion draft. I think that's going to happen this year. But we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.